Hello, my name is Dr. Peter McGrail, and I am the subject lead for Theology, Philosophy and Religious Studies here at Liverpool Hope. Welcome to this short video in which I'm going to take you through some of the aspects of the study of theology here. I'm going to talk to you about where the study of theology sits within Liverpool Hope, about the way in which we teach the subject, what some of the main content is, and also a question about what we look for in our students by way of assessment. Before, however, I dive into that, it's important just to say where we fit with everything else at Liverpool Hope. There isn't a department of theology, and we are not a faculty, for example. We sit alongside other subjects in the School of Humanities. And that means we are there alongside subjects such as history, English, politics, international relations, law, media, and creative writing. What do all those subjects have in common? They're fascinated by the human person. They want to understand how human beings interact in societies in a legal context. They want to understand how human beings create narratives about themselves in their history, or even can create narratives about things that have never even happened. They're interested also in how we find meaning in life and ask the really big questions. And that, of course, is where the study of theology comes in. And at Liverpool Hope, the study of theology is very closely associated with the study of philosophy and of religious studies. Now, if you have been doing or are doing RSA level, the odds are that already you have studied something like a combination of philosophy and ethics and Christianity, or philosophy and ethics and Buddhism or Hinduism. When our students arrive at Hope, very often they want to carry on working in that sort of cross-disciplinary way, and we're very well placed to help. That's on two fronts. First of all, our staff work together very closely across the three disciplines of philosophy, theology, and religious studies. We all teach, in a sense, in each other's patches, and it means that a very rich, integrated student experience is built up. But it's also possible for you as students to combine these together. And there are two ways that you can do this. You could do what we call a single honours degree in theology and religious studies, which half of the degree is in theology and half of it is in religious studies, but we look at certain points down the course of the degree to integrate the two, to get you to allow the ideas from one to bounce off the other, and in the end produce a dissertation where you're pulling it all together. Or if your tastes are more in the philosophical direction, well, you can do a combined honours degree in theology and philosophy and ethics, in which exactly half of your degree is in theology and exactly half of it is in philosophy and ethics. If you want to know more about what's involved in those, there are separate videos available for you on this website in theology, in religious studies rather, and in philosophy and ethics. But whatever the combination, in humanities, all the teaching of subjects goes on in our Hope Park campus, and there's a photograph of it there. It's a nice sized campus in South Liverpool. We like to think of it as a garden setting, and everything is there that you need, from library to IT facilities to coffee houses, ref, and so on. If you're combining theology, or indeed any subject in the humanities, with one of the performing arts, you'll divide your time between Hope Park for your humanities subject and our creative campus nearer town for the performing arts. So that's broadly where we sit, and that's where we teach. So how do we teach? Well, all our sessions last 50 minutes. And there are three types of session that you will have across your first year, second year, and indeed into your third. These are lectures, seminars, and tutorials. So what's the difference between them? Well, Lectures are where we introduce you to new material, where we lay before you ideas that probably you've not encountered before, introduce you to some big names, to some key events, and so on. And a lecture is very much led by the lecturer. We teach these in theology in groups of about 20 students. So you're never in a vast classroom where you're sitting lonely at the back of a great raked lecture theatre. You're always in a group where you can get to know other people and where we get to know you well. We also like to think of our lectures as being rather interactive. We don't stand there and talk at you for 50 minutes. We do stop every so often and ask you what you think about things. And of course, our students can also stop us simply by raising a hand and saying, excuse me, I don't think I've quite got what you're saying there, or do you mean that? Or no. So in your first year, you do 3 lectures in theology a week. And for most weeks, one of those 3 takes the form of a textual workshop where a lecturer will take you through a particular text that's central to your studies and explain to you how it gets there and how you take it to pieces and so on. Alongside the lectures, there are seminars. Again, these are taught in small groups, never more than 20. And what these do is they follow on from the lecture. In the lecture, you have the ideas explained to you, set out before you. In the seminar which follows the lecture, you then sit together and discuss those and take them to pieces. There'll usually be some preparation work for a seminar. You'll be asked to do some reading in advance. And basically, you will be discussing that, teasing apart together as a group under the leadership of your tutor some of the key ideas that you've already heard in the lecture. And during your first year, as indeed your second and third, you have 2 seminars in theology every week. The third teaching approach we have is what we call the tutorial. Every week you're going to meet with another 9 students and your tutor. Same 9, same tutor. And we will work with you in that group on developing all the skills that you need in order to succeed at university, usually by deepening our knowledge of the subject, looking at a very small text in close detail, or discussing a key thinker again. But it's about skills development as much as anything else. And it's about helping you to find your own voice, not only in hearing about theology, but also in doing it in a safe environment. But not even a group of 10 is enough. We need to get to know all our students one by one. And so each member of academic staff at Liverpool Hope, whatever the subject, has to timetable 2 hours per week when any student can come and see them and talk to them. So every one of your lectures will have 2 hours of office hours, just drop in. But in theology, philosophy, and religious studies, we also have a pretty well open door policy. If you see our door is open, just knock on it. And if we're able to, we'll give time to you then, because we want to know our students on a truly one-to-one basis by name, so you're not just a number here. So where we are, how we teach, what do we teach? Well, theology is basically divided across 3 years in sort of time blocks. The first block is a great huge one from the birth of Christ up to the year 1453. The second is basically the Reformation and the Enlightenment, and the third year is the 20th and 21st centuries. So you've got the picture now. And we take a theme for each one. And the theme for the first year really is what we call God, Christ, and humanity. And we like to give you an introduction to the study of theology by saying, well, what is it that is remarkably different about Christianity? What makes Christianity so complicated, which is why it's developed so rich a theology? And the answer is that at its heart, for most Christians, there is a sense that Jesus is not just human, but is also divine. Christianity is the great experience trip of God becoming human. And then we have to ask all kinds of questions that says, okay, well, how is God human? What difference does that make to humanity? what does it tell us about the human person, and how do human beings engage with this? There is a messiness in Christianity between the material and the spiritual. They're not tidily divided. If you like your religion neat and tidy, Christianity is just a little bit too well fleshly for that. So we take you into that in your first year in a number of ways. We take you to the early church and say, okay, how did early Christians try and work out all these things? What is different about Christianity? But you're also taken to looking at the way in which, across Christian history, Christians have tried to see what are the implications for the material and the spiritual of this odd, in a sense, coming together of them at the very heart of its religion. You'll also be introduced to biblical studies. That's what we seek to work with you on. We need to see that you're learning it, and that's what assessments are for. They're about opportunities for you to engage with the material and to make it your own. And you'll be pleased to see here that on this list, you don't find the word exam. There is no exam in our first year. That's new to you because you've just spent 2 years, or you're spending 2 years doing A-level, which has one important assessment only that carries weight, and that's the exam at the end. With us, however, the exam never carries more than 1/3 of the total marks for any year. And in the first year, all your marks come from coursework. So you are building up your mark for the year as you go through the year. It doesn't all happen in one great big bang at the end. So we have each week in your tutorial, you'll be completing a worksheet, and they together make a portfolio that carries 1/3 of the marks for the year. So what you're doing every week, getting feedback every week, having a chance to go through it in class, put that together, and that's 1/3 of your marks. We also want to get you used to essay writing for credit. So there's an essay in Christian theology, not too huge, but it's there. There's a presentation on Christian theology. Again, it's getting used to working with other people and hearing others presenting their material as well. We like you to start in your first year looking for things for yourself. You know, we don't spoon feed. And so you'll be having a research project where you'll be, under very guided circumstances, investigating something for yourself. And finally, we have a viva on issues in biblical studies. That's probably a word you're not used to. A viva is a strange kind of exam. What you do is you choose a topic from a list that you're given, you work on it, and your tutors work on you with it because it's part of the coursework through the year. And then at the end of the year, you sit and you have a conversation with 2 of your tutors in which you and they will talk about that thing that you've prepared and revised for, and that counts as one of our assessed pieces. Now, we do a brief one in the first year. As you'll see, the viva becomes much more important in the 3rd year. In the 2nd year, we move on in time to the Reformation and to the Enlightenment. And one of the things that ties these together is the emerging sense of the autonomous human being. A human being who is in the Reformation period, the challenge is, can a human being for themselves interpret the scriptures? And what is the relationship between the human individual Christian and the church? And then when you move into the Enlightenment period, that whole process moves up several gears, and you have this sense of, well, the human being as the one who has authority in themselves to make sense of and to understand their world. So we call this year the human person, authority, and the quest for truth. So what will we look at? We'll look at the Reformation. Big time, we look at the Protestant Reformation. But we also then move on to the Enlightenment and look at how Christianity then found itself in a world of enlightenment in which the churches were now regarded as, in some way, no longer having the authority to decide for each person what they thought. And how did it encounter this world? How did it develop and move with it? How did it react against it? How did that world respond to the church? We carry on with biblical studies, but we also introduce at this point something that's important to the way we teach theology. It's all too easy to do theology as though all Christians were basically from Europe or North America. In fact, somewhere in the second half of the last century, the center of gravity of Christianity shifted, and there are now more Christians in the southern hemisphere than there are in the north. The majority of Christians in the world now live in Africa, in Latin America, and in Asia. And so we look at Christianity as a world rather than just a European phenomenon. And in your second year, you look at what happens to world Christianity in this period of the Reformation and Enlightenment. Christianity spreads out from Europe and starts to encounter very different cultures. What happens when evangelicals or Catholics find themselves in South India? Interesting encounters. And then broadly, we pick up the Christian Enlightenment questions around ethical questions to Christianity. And also this thing, what the tension between reason and religious feeling? You'd have kind of thought that with the Enlightenment, religious feeling would be downplayed and reason would rule all. Didn't quite happen. And the Enlightenment was followed by the Romantic movement. It's a fascinating tension and dialogue between the two. Assignments, well, you can see what emerges for your second year is an exam. There is an exam lasting 3 hours, which takes a third of your marks. You've got another portfolio of tutorial work. This time you're looking at theological developments in the Reformation and post-Reformation periods, and with a special focus on this part of England. As far as possible, Lancashire and even Liverpool are used as a lens, and we look at the ordinary lives of Christians that we know from history in that period, from their own writings. And then there's an essay on the Reformation, you see they're getting longer, and a textual analysis on the Bible. When we turn to the final year, we bring it up to date, looking at Christianity in the 20th and the early 21st centuries. And there is one word which defines that period, and that's conflict. 2 world wars, a whole series of cataclysms, and so on. So we look at what has happened to Christian theology as it has encountered that world. What's been the impact of the encounter with the horrors of the Holocaust, for example, or questions around feminism, and how has the church responded to that? As we're moving into the 21st century, the whole kind of impact of Black Lives Matter is beginning to be felt. So what's happened with theology in a world where, as I said before, actually most Christians do not have a white face? During this year, we also explore world Christianity, but how it is across the world. Extraordinarily vibrant phenomenon, looking very different to what it looks like in Europe. An explosion of Christianity in sub-Saharan Africa, with a very lively form of worship emerging. An explosion of evangelical Christianity in Latin America, where previously Roman Catholicism had held the fort, and Christianity spreading extraordinarily in places like China. So we look at world Christianity. We have 2 year-long seminars which pick up a lot of these themes. One of them is looking at systematic theology, looking at how theologians have tried to understand the whole picture in this period. And the other takes a rather more pastoral line, looking at questions about spirituality and ethical issues and so on. And you have to do a piece of individual research for your 3rd year. If you're doing a combined honours, you do a research project. Or if you're doing a single honours, you do a dissertation. What's the difference between the two? Length. Research project is 5,000 words, a dissertation is 10. We supervise you, we give you all the help you need, but you have to show that you can think for yourself. So assignments, once again, we have an exam, 3 hours. The independent research project or the dissertation, Those are part of it as well. And then for each of the 2 seminars, you remember I introduced vivas at the first session, they come back. So you do a 25-minute viva for each of those seminars. Now, it's based on work you've done through the year. You've had a chance to explore this, discuss it, to take it through, and you know what you're preparing. So that means that you're in a very solid position to have a sound academic conversation with your tutors at the end of it. Now, we might ask, why do this? Some people get the idea, well, doing Christian theology is just for those who want to go into the ministry. Well, some do. Some of our graduates have done, certainly. But you're doing, as I said at the start, a subject which is part of the humanities. And humanities are still very attractive to employers. In fact, there's an argument for saying that someone who can do the humanities is especially attractive to employers at the moment. We're coming out of COVID as I speak to you. The world is going to look very different. A combination of COVID, of Brexit, of different changes in the whole power structures across the world and trading patterns means that employment patterns are changing as well. And what is needed is, above all else, flexibility. We don't teach in the humanities vocation skills. We don't teach you how to be an accountant. The nearest we come to it is law, I suppose. But we teach you how to think and to sift ideas and to analyze material and to communicate in a clear way, to present an argument, to have a rich awareness of other cultures and to be really quite certain that you understand that other people see the world differently to the way you do. To organize your work for yourself. Those are all transferable skills that the humanities are very good delivering. That's worth remembering because it's highly unlikely that you will start a job when you leave university and that you'll still be doing the same one when you come to retire. So a capacity to work across different disciplines and in a way where you are sifting and organizing your own work and material is essential. So not surprisingly, careers of recent graduates, yes, have included teaching, but also things like journalism, the civil service, law, yes, even with a theology and philosophy degree, or working in commerce. We've had graduates gone into management positions and management training for some rather big names. So employment-wise, we create people who can look at a broad range of ideas and opportunities. But some people choose to stay on and do postgraduate study with us. And you can do a master's here with us. And there are 2 routes for theology. You can either do our master's, our MA in philosophy, theology, and religion, or you can do an MA by research, where you pick an idea and you work on it and develop it for yourself. So maybe across the 3 years, something gets in there and you think, I need to know more about that, and I need to know more about that in great detail. That might be a master's route for you. But don't just take my word for this. What do our students think of us? I talked about open door policies and office hours. One of our students recently made this comment. What made my experience special was the subject knowledge, support, and total commitment to their staff. Their doors were always open to students. One of our 3rd-year students said this: I love the course content and how it provokes views in me and makes me think about things differently. Please don't come to university unless you're ready to think about things differently to the way you think about them now. It will change your mind. And this last comment is from a student who is even now working on their final year dissertation. My dissertation supervisor has always been very helpful and engaging, they say. Always replies within the day and is easy to talk to, which makes asking questions easier. There's a lot of information online for the dissertation, and the tutorials every week at the start of the year helped too. And we do like to take our students outside the classroom. Obviously, a year of COVID has made this difficult, but we have had quite a lot of experience at doing that. That is a beardless me with a group of students in Dublin a few years ago, where we're actually standing outside something called the Chester Beatty Library near Dublin Castle, if you know it, looking, where we're about to go in and look at some extraordinary ancient manuscripts. And we also had a good time while we were there in Dublin, but who wouldn't? We've also done some trips further afield. These are photographs of study trips which have gone on in Greece and Turkey, looking at biblical sites. And we've done that in the past in association with a continental university. So people get to know even more ideas about the world and how other people see it. So, if anything that's been said there interests you or confuses you, or you want to know a bit more about something, please don't hesitate and contact us. Those are the Hope contact details. And if the query is one which relates to me or to my colleagues in philosophy, theology, and religious studies, the email will be directed to us. So whatever you're doing at the moment, I wish you all the best of luck. And hopefully I look forward to seeing you one day here at Liverpool Hope. Thank you.